Hello, this is Mr. Vaughn with Chapter 11 and 12 notes on statistical measures. This chapter, we're going to go through these two chapters pretty quickly. I'm going to give you the highlights, the things that I want to make sure that you guys know in sixth grade here. So I had some technical difficulties, so the everything's already written out, so you're not going to get to see me writing things, but I'm going to pull down a little curtain here to reveal what's coming next. So let's jump right into it. There's 2 pages to these notes. So like I said, they're going to cover 2 whole chapters. So anything that you need, look into your textbook 801 to 925 if you need more information on these things. So statistical measures sounds like a really fancy word, really big word, and basically what it's about is getting data, gathering information, organizing that data in a chart or a graph, and then understanding that data, finding out things like the average, the middle numbers, dividing the numbers up, that kind of thing. So that's what this chapters are about. Data and data gathering. So, some words you need to know. Mean, which is in lesson 11.1, is a fancy word for average. So you find the average by adding all of the data together, adding the data, and then dividing by the number of pieces of data. So if you had 5 pieces of information, 5 different numbers, you would add those numbers up and then divide by 5. If you had 6 numbers, you would divide by 6. The next one is median, and lesson 11.2. It's the value in the middle of the data. So I'm going to say this a few times during the video because I think it's really, really important. After you have any information given to you or you have gathered that information, one of the first things you want to do is put those values in order from greatest to least. And then you find the median by looking to see which one of those things is in the middle. That's all. The next thing is the mode. Also pretty easy concept to understand if you can remember the vocabulary word. Mode in 11.2 is the number that appears the most often. The number that appears the most often in your list of numbers is the mode. And it can be more than one number, too. It could be that 2 things come up at the same time. Alright, sorry we had a phone call. So I think I gave the definition of mode, the number that appears the most often. Oh yeah, so it can be more than one number. You could have 2, 3, 4 numbers that all appear a lot of times, and those would all be listed as the mode. So here's an example. See how far down we want to go. So, my baseball team, the Giants, in their last 5 games, they scored these runs right here. They scored, go with green, 2, 8, 3, 3, and 1 runs. That's how many runs they scored in the last 3 or 5 games. So, like I said, first thing you want to do is put them in order from least to greatest. Put them in order from least to greatest. You don't need to do that to figure out the mean, but it's always a good first thing to do. So mean, median, and mode oftentimes go together. That's what I'm asking you to figure out in this problem, or showing you how to figure out in this problem. So figure out the mean, figure out the average, you add all these up, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 3 plus 8, and then divide by 5 because there's 5 pieces of data. That comes out to 17 over 5, and if you divide that out, it's 3.4 runs. So the average number of runs they scored in those 5 games was 3.4 runs. To figure out the median, you go to the middle section. So it's easy to do with 5 numbers, but if you had a whole longer list of numbers, you would count, and then divide by 5. How many numbers do we have? And then you'd find the middle number. So the median is 3. That's the number in the middle. And then the mode is also 3 because the number 3 occurs twice. If they only appear once, you would say there's no mode. But in this case, it is 3. I'm going to go through things pretty quickly, so you can go back if you need to. Power of video, you get to rewind it. Quartiles, probably a new word for you. It's an 11.3 lesson if you need to refer to it. Quartiles means you're taking that data that you have and dividing it into 4 equal parts. You might have guessed that from this word core right here, quarter, into 4 equal parts. After you've, it actually erased it. That's not good. Let me get that back. So once you've divided into 4 equal parts, you take the sorry, lost my train of thought. They'll ask you to find the first quartile and the third quartile. I couldn't get the program to type these out, that's why it's handwritten. So this means the first quartile, so that's why there's a little 1 there, and then Q sub 3 means the third quartile. The way you figure that out is you find the median, or the middle, of both the lower and upper half of the data. That will give you the first and third quartiles, and I'll show you how to do that in an example in just moments. So the range, pretty easy to understand, is the difference between the largest and the smallest numbers in the set. So once you have them ordered, subtract the largest from the smallest, and that is your range. I think I can. Oh, outliers is another word that you should know. Just like the name implies, it's things that are on the outside of the main group of data. It's data that is much greater or much less than the other values. And in some situations, you'd consider throwing those outliers out, or at least identifying them to the person that's reading your information. So let's go through an example. These are how many games the Giants have won in the last 12 years. And sorry, it's already written. I can't rewrite it there. But here's the games they won over the last 12 years, or how many games they've won. So last year they won 84 games. The year before that they won 88. Year before that 76. Year before that 94, and etc. all the way back 12 years. First thing I did was order them from greatest to least. And I'm going to be writing in green for you to see what's happening, or I'll write in blue because there's already red and green up there. So identify the quarters. So you see we've divided these into 4 sections right here. Right, there was 12 pieces of data. Divide that by 4, and then that'll tell you how many pieces of data there are. The median is right in the middle of the whole section. That's right here. Now the median is halfway between. There's no number there in the middle. Right? So you take the average of the 84 and 86, and you would say the median is 85 for this example. So to find the first quartile, you go to where the first and second quartile meet each other, right here where I circled it in red, and again, there's not a single number there. You have to take the average. So 75 plus 76 divided by 2 is 75.5 is the average. So the way that would be worded would be the first quartile value is 75.5. Same thing for the third quartile. You go to the third quarter, 1, 2, 3 quarters up, and at the top of that, between the third and the fourth quartile, is 88 and 91. So you take the average of those two numbers, add them up, divide it by 2, and you get 89.5. That's how you find the third quartile value. So divide them into quarters, take the median, the middle of the lower half, is 75.5, and then the middle of the upper half is 89.5. The range is the difference between the biggest number, which is 94, and the smallest number, which is 71, and that is 23. That's enough work to show how you did it. And there's really no outliers here. You know, there's 71 to 94. 71 has, there's plenty of numbers in the 70s. There's 5 of them. There's 3 numbers in the 90s. So I would say that there are no outliers in this example. We have a second page to go through also. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Wouldn't want to have to do this again. Next page is on how to display your data. So charts and graphs are the way that you display your data. Here's an example. Well, there's 3 main graphs I want to show you: the stem and plot, the line plot, and the histogram. Your book also has the box and whisker plot is what it's called, and that's pretty complicated, so I'm not going to get into that at this point, but it's in the book if you would like to. So, taking that same example, the number of games that the Giants won over the last 12 years, first thing I did was order them from least to greatest, and now I want to show that data in a stem and leaf plot. Stem and leaf plot. And what you do for this, I'll go with blue. What you do for this is you have you make something that looks like this. The stuff on the left is the stem, and the stuff on the right is the leaf. And in this situation, I took the tens, the value of the tens right here, the tens in the 80s, and put it here. And then the tens are also in the 90s right there. And then put the value of the number in the ones column over in the next section, in the leaf section. So 7 and 1, 7 tens plus 1 is 71. And then you've got 72 right here. Then 75 right here. And then 76 right here. You get it? And the next line would be the 80s. So 84 is right here. 86, 88, and 88, and the same thing for the 90s. So it's like they call it this because call it a leaf and stem because like a plant, you'd have the stem, and then off of the stem would grow the leaves. So in our situation, like the 70s is the stem, and then off of that grows a 71, a 72, a 75, and then you have another stem that has the stuff that's in the 80s. So you get that? Stem and leaf. And you can also have the stem be the hundreds or thousands place value. It doesn't matter. But you do need a key that tells the person what you've decided to do. So, and this is okay enough to display it. 7 with a line in the middle. 5 equals 75. You just put any example you have on there. Okay. The next type of graph that you guys are going to need to know how to do is a line plot. Sometimes you'll see it called a dot plot. This is in lesson 12.1. And what this is you list all the possible numbers in the range, even if you didn't use them, all the way from 71 to 94 in our situation, right? And then you put a little X, or in some situations you'll see it as a dot, over each of the values that you got. So I'm going to use the stem and leaf thing to plot these things. So 71 is one of my numbers. So I go to 71 and I put an X. 71 occurred just one time, so there's only one X or one dot there in some situations. 72 gets an X. 75, same thing, one X. But look at 76. There's two 76s, so there's two lines there, or two X's there. Sometimes it'll be two dots. You'll also see these numbers over here. Should probably be there. So you can tell how often they occurred. This is a good way to figure out the mode, right? Which numbers occurred most often in this situation. 76 occurred twice. 88 occurred twice. So 76 and 88 are your mode. This is also a good graph to look at, chart to look at when you're whoa. Better, I'll come back. Just all disappeared on me. This is also a good graph to look at when you want to identify outliers. So you can see if one's way, way down on the left or way, way down on the right. You can identify that. So that is a line plot graph, or dot plot. Last one is a histogram, which is kind of similar to the line plot, but what you do is you divide them up by ranges. So I have decided to go in increments of 5. So how many times did I have a value that was between 71 and 75? So I can look right here, 71, 75. I had 3. So I make a bar graph up to the line 3. How many times did I have a value between 76 and 80? 76 and 80 is here. 2 times, right? So I make a bar graph going up to 2. You get it? 81 to 85 only occurred 1 time. So I go up like that. So it's a bar graph showing the ranges of the values that you have. And you don't have to use all of these graphs for every set of data. The idea is for you to look at a set of data and see which one of these would be most useful for what you want to get out of it. What do you want to show the person? What information do you want together? So I think that covers everything. Hopefully you understood that, and we will talk more in class.